Hi, and welcome to The Curve Weekly, the podcast that keeps you up to date with all the money, business, and stock market tea.
Everyone should experience first class at least once in their lives, and Annie shouldn't miss out just because she can't afford it.
Help me, I'm poor.
Like, I don't think you've ever looked hotter, honestly. Like, I know that sounds a bit weird, but your hair and your face. Hey, Miso, I know she looks so pretty, doesn't she?
Oh my God, we should hang out more often. Compliments like that.
I think we hang out way too much already.
I know, true. Yeah.
You look like you've had a blow wave. Did you use the new Dyson? Is that your birthday present?
Yes. No, I did.
Yeah.
I used the new Dyson Airwrap and oh my goodness, it's a game changer.
So for anyone that missed this, I think this is like maybe the best friend material I've ever done, right?
Oh, hands down.
Vic's like banged on about getting an ear wrap for honestly ever. So basically for Vic's birthday, I emailed Dyson and I was like, hello. Just wondering, is there any chance that you would be interested in giving Victoria a birthday present that I can claim?
And I love it.
And they were like, yeah, sure. Anyway, so it's like, and I used it the other day, just like a little spruce up. Where was I going?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Oh, going
on a
out.
date?
It was last Saturday. No, it was last Saturday. I
Well,
love
on a date?
Shut up, honestly. And I was trying to have it like blow it out. I must say, I think you need to show me how to use it. I was like in a hurry and didn't know what I was up to.
Yeah. No, it's so easy to use. It's honestly like hairstyling for dummies. I don't know if that's what they want the tagline to be, but it's honestly, it sucks your hair in and curls it and makes it into a, I'm just like, oh, where has this been all my life?
Anyway, enough about your hot hair.
Okay, so stock market news. So we've got a bit of a divergence in the world at the moment in terms of what's happening in the stock market. So in the US stock market is hitting at all-time highs. So levels it's never, ever been at before. So if we go back to, say, December 21, that was the previous high that the S&P 500, so the top 500 companies in the US, that index, that was the top point that it ever reached. Then it kind of fell back down in 2022. And then last year, 2023, it's kind of roofed it back up again. And the start of this year has continued. So we're reaching new highs, which is quite healthy and quite good for a stock market. It's a good indication things are going well. But on the flip side, we've got another large economy in the world that is reaching record lows. And it's quite interesting to see such a divergence at the moment. So China, their index is hitting 5-year lows. So levels it hasn't seen in the last 5 years. And the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is hitting 20-year lows.
20? Good Lord.
So you're kind of undoing all that growth. If you think about all that growth in those companies' share prices over the last 20 years has all been undone. And we're kind of going back to levels we were at 20 years ago in Hong Kong, which is crazy. I mean, there's been tons that's been going on in that 20 years in Hong Kong.
But also Hong Kong is starting to be slowly taken over by China, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing with China is, and we spoke about this last week, was all around the fact that their population is shrinking. And a lot of economic data coming out of China isn't as good as people first thought or getting worse. But the government in China is now considering nearly a $300 billion package to prop up the stock market. Because if a stock market isn't doing well in a country, that can start fueling people taking money out, companies not wanting to list on their stock exchange, and really just kind of a sense of doom and gloom in a country where the stock market isn't doing too well. So the Chinese government has got nearly a $300 billion package to prop up the economy.
So who's the money coming from? When you say package, is that from the government? Are they loaning from
taxpayers? But that just means the government gets in more debt. So if the propping up doesn't work or the support doesn't work, how much longer or how much do they keep going to prop up the stock market before they give up and they go, okay, you know what, people just aren't wanting to invest in China. So it is a dangerous game. And the whole point of a stock market is you've got investors trading with other investors depending on supply and demand. So as soon as you kind of artificially start interfering, that's when things can kind of turn into a disaster. So it's not a very good sign when the government steps in.
And where's the money going? So like where is, for example, if you're like, okay, they're putting this much money in, is it the government deciding what shares they want to buy? Is that how it works?
Yeah. In previous times, the Chinese government has just closed the stock market on bad days. So when the stock market starts falling, it just shuts it and goes, you know what? No one's buying or selling anymore today. We're going to stop, which again is really bad because it's like, oh gosh, I can't get my money out or I can't buy stock.
It also just creates so much uncertainty for people, doesn't it? Like,
totally.
There's this feeling of like, oh God, are they just going to close the stock market? I've got money in there. And then people freak out and then they pull their money.
Yeah. And so that's why you probably get a lot of investors that are like, you know what, China's just a bit too hard basket to invest in. I'm going to put my money into other indexes or other economies like the US. And so that's why, we've seen the US stock market reaching all-time highs and China and Hong Kong reaching new lows. But there is that whole big dick energy of China versus US at the moment. And so I think from an economic health perspective, US is definitely winning right now. So the S&P 500, the interesting thing is that there is 7 companies that make up about 30% of the index. So remember, there's 500 companies in the S&P 500, the top 500 companies in the US, but 7 of those companies make up 30% of the index, which is huge. And we haven't seen this for like decades. And they're called the Magnificent Seven. So it's Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is Google, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, and Nvidia. Yeah, so these make up 30% of the index. So when they move, the index moves. If you've got a big weighting in the index, if you sneeze, everyone gets a cold kind of thing. So if you had invested $100 in the S&P 500, $7 of that $100 would go straight into Apple stock. That's how much of that $100 you'd be owning of Apple, even though you're investing in 500 different companies.
Whoa.
And $7 would go into Microsoft as well. So $14 would go into 2 companies. And the rest of your money, the remaining $86, is split across 498 companies, which is quite wild just to see the weight or the size of those 2 companies in particular that they are of the S&P 500. So when Apple does well, the S&P 500 does well. When Microsoft doesn't do well, S&P 500 doesn't do well because there's such a large portion of that. So you are diversified, but what those top 7 companies do does have quite a big impact on the movement of the index.
It's super interesting.
I think you'd like this one, Soph. So I don't know if you've seen, but Stanley, the
I know the ones you mean, those massive cups that you have a handle and a straw.
Yeah. And
they come in like grey or green and I know the ones you mean.
It's like the bigger, the better, the bigger your Stanley cup, the better. And it's gone viral on TikTok and it's become this hyped craze, particularly in the US. And Gen Z, millennials, people wanting to own these Stanley Cups, and they've bought out limited edition ones and like all the stuff. There's like such a craze. People are camping outside Target for hours before the store opens to get these limited edition Stanley Cups, which is absolutely crazy. So there is
congratulations to them. That is amazing branding. Like to have people queuing for a drink bottle of all things, maybe an iPhone, maybe tickets to see your favorite band, but a fucking drink bottle, who has time for that shit?
It's such a good rebrand because they were historically, I guess, made thermoses and camping equipment mainly.
I think of them as like a camping, we're on the root burn track and I've got my thermos out for a hot chockey, I definitely wouldn't have thought of them as like a cool brand.
No, yeah. And that's kind of why they've done such a good rebrand. And it is quite interesting to see these companies that historically targeted one demographic. Like this would have been kind of blue collar workers, campers, that kind of thing. And now they're targeting mainstream millennials, young girls, just creating a completely different target market and targeting a different audience. And we've seen it with Birkenstocks. We've seen it with
I was
Crocs.
about to say, is it similar to Birkenstocks?
Yeah.
And Crocs?
Yeah.
They've nailed it.
They've nailed it. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to see. And I was reading articles about this and seeing it all over social media. And so I Googled, is Stanley a public company? And it is. It's called Stanley Black & Decker. So they merged the businesses in about 2010, I think it was the Stanley Company and Black & Decker. And they merged, and it's only a small part of the business. I think investing in a company where one tiny product out of the whole business is doing well, probably not the best investment idea. But if you did start to see maybe a few other products and you started seeing in their revenue that, okay, this is actually having an impact on their revenue because people might be going in to buy these.
That, and then they buy something else.
Yeah, and they buy something else.
Tent or something.
Yes, yeah. It's probably like young girls dragging their dads in to buy the Stanley cup, and the dad comes out with a few other bits of tenting equipment.
Bivouac.
Yeah, a bivouac. Oh my God, some carabiners. Oh, some crampons. Gosh.
So basically the thing is, if you see Birkenstocks and they're selling, hot pink Crocs with flames are absolutely going crazy. That doesn't mean that holistically all of their products are doing well or that the company's a good investment. You just have to keep things in perspective.
Yes, yeah, keep it in perspective. But it is a really good lesson that look around you. If you are sitting on TikTok or you are seeing on social media that there is a bit of a craze and people are starting to buy certain products or certain brands that they weren't before, maybe just have a little thing in your head that goes, oh, hang on a second. Maybe I want to see if I can invest in that. So it's just having that investing mindset.
I was waiting for the investor mindset to be dropped.
Anyway, another trend that we are seeing on social media as well is, and I am all for this. When I saw this, I was like, hallelujah, I've been waiting for this. So it is called loud budgeting. And I don't know if people listening have bought into it or doing it, have seen it, but it's a viral trend on TikTok that's all about personal finance, and it's the opposite of quiet luxury. So what you're doing is you are effectively saying your budget out loud. So you're like, look, you know what? In 2024, I'm going to cancel my gym membership because I don't use it and I'm going to save that money. And so you're almost holding yourself accountable because you're outwardly saying what you're going to do in your budget in 2024. Quite
so
cool.
Would it be, as an example, like, okay, I'm not going to spend any money going out for dinners in 2024.
Yep. And you say,
is it the concept that I say it and therefore my friends know publicly that if they see me out for dinner, I'll be shamed?
Totally. And you say it on social media. So if anyone sees Soph out for dinner, they'd be like, excuse me.
So it would be like a takeaway coffee cup or something would be quite good.
Yeah. Like I watched this one girl and she was like, this year in 2024, I'm ghosting my friends. I'm saying no to plans so that I can save that money and grow my wealth. And I was like, go you. I was like, probably a bit extreme to ghost all your friends, but quite funny. Like people are finding really innovative, creative ways to allow budget.
Why don't we think of one? I think we should do one. Let's think about it and come back to this next week. We can have our loud budget and we can announce it. And if anyone sees us breaking it, we have to give ourselves some kind of like...
And hold each other accountable. And so can everyone in the Curve community if they see us doing it.
Ooh. Maybe we should do like a pledging where it's like, and we could share everyone's. That'd be quite fun.
It would be really fun. No, but I think this is really cool because a lot of social media is all about keeping up with the Joneses, making yourself look good and trying to impress other people through materialistic things. And I just love how this has completely flipped that on its head. And it's like, let's make being frugal cool. Let's make saving money cool. And if anyone can jump on this bandwagon and, who wasn't previously budgeting or doing cost-saving things, I think is like really, really cool. And we've got girl math and all that shit that I hate. Like this is just right up my alley in terms of, I'm like, yay, I love stuff like this when it goes viral.
Yeah. Oh my God, love this.
And in other news, I read this headline and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, this is great because we've talked about how working from home, flexible working conditions have been pretty much a godsend to women. We now can be much more active participants in the workforce. The whole 9 to 5 working week was set up for mainly men who had partners at home that could look after family and children. And so if there's one thing that COVID has done, which is positive, it's really shaken up the workplace and the working arrangements. And so we're finally starting to see data now, which is really, really cool, that men are actually working shorter hours on average than they did 25 years ago, and women are picking up the slack. So it's almost like COVID and this flexible working environment has allowed us to enter the workforce
in a new way.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see, those women that might have been working in a workplace where, okay, look, you have to come to the office 9 to 5 every day. and they're like, look, that's not going to work for me. And they're like, okay, cool, we'll see you later. Can now actually be like, yeah, cool, I can work 2 days a week here and 3 days a week at home, or I can work from maybe 9 to 1 and then spend the afternoon at home looking after children. So just that flexibility has really meant that we can now lean in a lot more to work, which is awesome.
It's crazy that you bring this up because yesterday I was speaking to one of the founders, Mila, from like higher paying roles, because a lot of them are really qualified for it. But as soon as they leave, it's really hard because unless they can fully commit to a full working week, they don't get a look in a job. Yeah. So anyway, they've got this website. It's called Jobs for Mums for anyone that's like interested, but they work with like all kinds of companies all over. It's just New Zealand specific. So say, for example, Fletcher Building or like Spark, for example, if they were open to a mum applying for a job that was like essentially appropriate for flexible hours and pay and blah, 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 they market it on Jobs for Mum's website. So you know automatically if you see a job on there that it's appropriate for you and that they're open to things being a bit more flexible. But it's just like, it's such a scary thought. It puts me off wanting to have kids because I don't want to have kids and then all of a sudden not be able to have the same earning capacity or do things that like challenge and excite me purely because they're reserved for someone that can be in the office from a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. It's scary.
I think it's just workplaces need to open their eyes up to the fact that women in particular are the ones that stay at home and look after children, and they've got a whole nother job at home. So it's like, be flexible in the fact that them coming to work and being paid is only probably a small portion or of the whole makeup of what they do. I don't know. I just feel like treat parents as parents, not men versus women, if that makes sense. Just create an environment for a family to
understand it, but I just don't know what the solution is because I mean, we've experienced it. We've worked with like amazing mums who have helped us with things like writing or social media or whatever. But it is difficult when you can only access someone for a short period of day because, of course, they've got to look after their kids for the rest of it. Like, I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's difficult for parents as well as employers. And I don't know what the like comfortable middle ground is.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a tricky one.
God, I feel like we could honestly talk about this.
I know.
It makes me annoyed every time. So
I know. I'm like, oh God. So this was positive news though. So this was positive
news. I've forgotten it.
Oh yeah. So that women are picking up the slack. Men are now working shorter hours, which is great, which I hope means that they're spending more time looking after children and picking up the jobs at home. And then women are being much more active participants in the workforce, so in paid employment. So yeah, it's really, really good to see. I mean, there's still a huge discrepancy. The average weekly hour worked by a male is 35 hours a week and a female's is 28 hours a week. So there's still quite a large gap.
I think we need to say men and women because I'm pretty sure if we say female, we're not encompassing them identifying folk. So I think and we don't need to cut this out. It's actually really good for people to listen, I think. But yeah, I know what you're trying to say, but I just wanted to correct.
So, and the biggest thing was after the pandemic. So it is definitely a function of this increase in flexible working conditions that's led to this increase in women participating. So we've seen a huge increase post-pandemic of this closing of the gap in terms of hours worked per week. So, but there's still a bit of a long way to go, as there always is. But also in terms of earnings, so we're talking about hours worked. In terms of earnings, the gap is also narrowed, particularly in the US. So when we talk about gender pay gap, it's about 9% in New Zealand. It's about think it's about 14% in Australia, or that may have been updated. But in the US, it's actually 16%. But it is closing. So if we think about weekly earnings for a woman in the US, it was $1,000 a week last year on average. But that's only about 84% of what men were paid. So we're getting paid about 16 less in America in terms of women versus men, unfortunately. So what was that stat? It's going to take over 200 years for the gender pay gap to close.
Stop. We spoke in like a corporate event last week. And it's so weird because as we were talking about it, I noticed, because there was obviously men in the room, and I noticed this kind of like, not because you don't want to be like, it's your fault. So it is really hard to talk about when men are around, but it's so important that they're aware of the situation. But I did find myself feeling a little bit awkward, like, let's just skip over this bit because, it's so stupid.
So it's like, okay, on to the next slide, I was like, no, this is important.
Yeah.
But it is true because they might have daughters and it's like, hey, you know what? Don't let your daughter be in this position when she retires, or, make her stand up for herself and ask for a pay rise, or make sure she's getting paid the equal amount as everyone else in her job, or your sisters or your wives. They are surrounded by women.
I have a friend who actually, her dad, she was basically on purely commission for like a couple of years and was really struggling financially, and she was meant to be going overseas, and her dad stepped in and was just like, you're not allowed to go, even though she's like definitely old enough to do her own thing and make her own decisions. He was like, unless you're on a salary, you're not going. So she was forced to have this uncomfortable conversation with her employer and be like, hey, I kind of need a base salary as well as commission, and it's worked out really well and it's so much better for her now. But it's just like, I think you're right. There is a part to play no matter where you sit in the story and the narrative. You can help encourage people to ask for what they deserve and know like, what your child or daughter or girlfriend should be, how they could be approaching things differently. And but it's a big old combo, isn't it? I really want to end on a high. Do you have any like fun jokes you could, finish with, or like, is there any?
Way to put me on the spot, Soph.
Sorry.
Why don't you tell everyone about your date?
Stop it. I knew that's exactly where you'd go. Like, it's literally 2 dates. I just need to give it a bit of breathing space.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay, well, if it continues to be a good dating scenario, we might hear more of this so-called person with no name.
Yeah, he loves trucks. He likes, no, not trucks. What are they called? Diggers.
Digger man.
He can be digger man. But yes, okay, have a great week.
You too?
No, I didn't mean you. I mean,
I was like, and I'll see you in about 5 seconds. Yep.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the money, biz and stock market news. And if you like what you heard, we would love a review. Thank you.
Yes, we would love a review. But if you did hate it, please, don't leave one if you hate it. No, but in all seriousness, could you please leave a review? Because it really helps other people find our cute little podcast.
And we hope you have a good week and see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Yeah. See you next Tuesday. Lol. See you next Tuesday. I mean Monday.